Horizon Worlds. After years of hype and billions of dollars spent, the virtual reality metaverse from Mark Zuckerberg has come to an end. But what exactly happened, and how does it affect the future of VR? Let's dive right into it. And what better way to start it off than with where it all began? Now, while the original idea of Horizon Worlds was already teased by Zuckerberg way back in 2019, it was not until 2021 that Meta officially released the public version of it in the US and Canada. And at launch, the idea was that this would become the next big social VR platform that was built from the ground up for virtual reality. However, while there were already some other popular alternatives out there at the time, such as VRChat for example, Horizon World would be the first one to be directly funded by one of the most massive tech companies in the entire world. And thanks to that, it was setting itself up to be far beyond what its competitors would be capable of. Or at least, that was what the initial idea was. However, even after all this hype, things definitely didn't go according to plan. And the first and maybe most noticeable problem at launch were the insanely low graphics that were being used for both the avatars as well as the environments. And honestly, these were so bad that it kind of became an entire meme on the internet in itself. And while this might have given Meta quite a lot of indirect publicity, we have to also keep in mind that it was partially thanks to the limitations of the Quest standalone headsets. Although, it would still take them a lot more time before they made any noticeable upgrades to this at all. But the initial problems didn't stop there, because the second one was the original localization. Since while only the US and Canada did get access to the official launch, the rest of the world would have to wait multiple years before getting any way to try it out at all. And that of course in return caused a majority of Quest owners to lose all their interest in it with each day that passed. But maybe the biggest problem of all was the unfulfilled promise of the many different things that you were supposed to be able to experience within it. Because while, for example, the previously mentioned VRChat has thousands if not millions of handcrafted places for you to explore that you could never all see even if you wanted to, when it came to the availability of the worlds in Horizon, there were only just a handful from the start that were mediocre at best. So, with this rough launch, Zuckerberg had only one single solution in mind, and that was, of course, to throw a bunch of money at it. And this, they sure did. Because in the 2 years following, they ended up spending multiple billions trying to fix the software and bugs, while also opening up creator tools for world building, and even improving the avatars and environments with more customization options and smoother graphics. But even after all this funding, the amount of actual good worlds could still be counted on just two hands. And most of these were still the same first-party ones that were there at launch already, and that were created by the Meta's teams themselves. So in a desperate attempt to fix this and get some more high quality stuff to the Quest headsets, Zuckerberg decided to launch multiple competitions that had some huge cash prizes in hopes to motivate and get some highly skilled world builders from other platforms to Horizon Worlds. And surprisingly, this initiative actually did seem to work at first. But then, Meta probably made its biggest mistake that eventually caused the downfall of Horizon Worlds altogether. But before we get into what happened there, let's first have a quick word from the company that made this video possible. Because none other than Cat VR, who are known for creating VR treadmills that look like they come straight out of Ready Player One, are once again taking virtual reality to the next level. Because while we are normally limited by the boundary system inside our VR experiences, it is Cat VR that has created these VR treadmills that let you run and jump without any limitation. And since their most recent version, which is known as the C2 Plus Enhanced, is compatible with every VR headset that you can think of, it is also often considered as the dream upgrade for any VR user. And they even go so far that it has things like haptic feedback built into it, as well as a vehicle hub, which will make it feel even more realistic when you're racing on a track or flying through the sky. And as a cherry on top, you can also use the code VRelity for a whopping $130 off on your entire purchase. So for those who are interested, I'll leave a link in the description below. But that gets us to Meta's biggest mistake for Horizon, which was introducing AI to their world creation tools, while simultaneously making it available for desktop and mobile as well, instead of keeping it exclusively for virtual reality. And this caused a huge influx of low-quality experiences in no time that made it nearly impossible to find anything worthwhile on the Explorer page. So, as a last effort, the CTO of Meta, known as Andrew Buzzword, announced that it would now be all or nothing when it comes to the Horizon platform. But instead of listening to the feedback from a lot of Quest users, Meta's vision of going all out once more meant that they were now going to integrate the Horizon worlds directly inside the OS of the Quest headsets. And that meant that after a big new software update, all users would now have their previous home environments erased, while getting it replaced instead with a direct view of the newly introduced Horizon Central. And this is basically a social hub that you can enter before you jump into another experience. But while these new looks were definitely a big step up, the change itself came with a lot of backlash. Because with this update, it would mean that Quest owners would now no longer have the possibility to change their home environment to their own custom versions. And while you luckily can now change the background by pressing on the left controller button, these are now sadly limited to only 4 built-in environments with the central hub as your default option. And to add even more fuel to the fire, is that the Horizon worlds would now also be everywhere from inside your menu. But maybe the worst place of all was inside of your app overview. And the reason why this was such a big problem is because that unlike with your other applications, it was not possible to delete or even hide these worlds at all. So no matter what you did, you were always forced to see them inside your app library. Now, of course, from Meta's point of view, they had the idea that by exposing users more to their worlds, that it would maybe stimulate people to dive into them more often. But instead, it pretty much created an opposite effect, with lots of VR gamers being mad at them for forcing Horizon worlds into their throats. So with the accumulation of all these mistakes together, it eventually caused them to make the inevitable decision to pull the plug on it. And to be precise, Horizon Worlds will exclusively be mobile only from June 2026 onward. But Andrew Buzzword did mention that some of the experiences will still be available to access from within VR. However, you will not be able to create new worlds in virtual reality or add updates to the old ones. So unsurprisingly, a lot of Quest owners see this as great news altogether, because this would mean that we could finally see a user interface that is only full of the applications that we truly want to have in there. But there is sadly one small downside that a lot of people don't know about. Because with the closure of Horizon, Meta also announced that the indirectly connected Hyperspace Capture beta will also be shut down. And for those who don't know, the Hyperscape app is capable of letting you scan any real-life location with your headset and then turn it directly into a virtual environment. And this was honestly a pretty cool new feature because it made it possible for you to visit your friends at home, even though they were on the other side of the world. Or you could even choose to meet up in some other crazy places, like Gordon Ramsay's kitchen, or my favorite, which was the official UFC ring. So with this shutting down too, it seems like a lot of lost potential. But luckily not all is doom and gloom. Because with the big shutdown of Horizon Worlds, as well as some first-party studios from Meta, Zuckerberg has mentioned multiple times that Meta's VR ambitions won't be going away soon, and that they are still highly motivated to continue the Quest brand well into the future. I mean, they are already working hard on their next headset, as well as some awesome VR games that are down the pipeline. But that is not all, because talking about VR games, there are also some must-play VR experiences on the Quest headsets that you have to try. So click on the video that you see on screen right now to make sure you don't miss out on that. And of course, stay awesome.